You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation, the place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Root, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Well, brother, taking it a day at a time. King, how about yourself?
Hey, man, no complaints, man. Just, like I said, man, just trying to get like you out here, man.
You're on your way, brother. You're on your way.
Hey, man, I'm working hard at it.
I see that tattered cover, that Brehot right next to you. That is tattered.
Oh, yeah, this thing is getting ugly, man.
Yeah, it's putting in work. It's called putting in work.
Indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Pushing Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology and our good people over there on Patreon. Big shout out for the patrons and whatnot. Give y'all a big round of applause. For all the work that you guys, put in, everything that you contribute to the show. We greatly appreciate that. We're going to be testing some things out with you all real soon. So, be on the lookout, check it out. Make suggestions too. You got something that you want to see, let us know, hit us up, let us know and stuff like that. And then for those of you who are not linked in on our Patreon, if you want to ask specific questions and different things like that, you got an idea for a show or something like that, we leave that right up to our, it's exclusive to our Patreon membership. So if you want to do that, you want to be a part of the show in that way, definitely hit us up on Patreon, right? And before I get too far, make sure you like and subscribe this video. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Facebook, make sure you follow us on Facebook, subscribe to it on YouTube, hit the notification bell, and, so we can run these numbers up, man, and, really start, having an algorithm start popping us up on other people's recommendations and stuff like that, so I've seen an increase in that, so we definitely want to keep pushing that or whatnot. But as far as Instagram and the social media outlets, you can find us at Cosmic Convo. That's CosmicConvo on Instagram. And there you can you find a link to all the stuff that we got going on, whether you want to get a chart, and whatever platform that you want to check us out on as well. That's all there. Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
Typically, Caliprucia Astrology at gmail.com is the best avenue. And then if that didn't ring my bell, either IG or Facebook via Shechem Ra. One of those three would definitely get at me. Indeed.
And you got that? How much longer are we looking at for the website?
It's at the helm of being finished. There's just a few colors and a few pieces of music I'm adding to the backdrop. So as soon as everything's finished and dried, we're gonna shoot it out, and it's gonna go. We're gonna drop a little video to kind of promote it. So everybody keep on the lookout for that as well.
Indeed. And I don't know if you all have noticed this, man, but Ra's a perfectionist. So he's going to tweak it, turn it until it, is right on point. So
that's the shit your moon, you know what it is.
Yeah, my Mars is in Chitra.
Mm-hmm. Fifth Lord's in Shitra.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Um, as far as last episode, man, we got a good response on that. A lot of people, like we touched on it before, but a lot of people really kind of resonated with them. I mean, I seen like crazy comments on YouTube and stuff like that in regards to the benefits that people were able to get from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We did touch on in a way briefly, but looks like the last time that we really delved into it, a lot of people got some gems. You know what I mean? They definitely got something to take with them that they can use and play with as you go. Takes a while to really just have that a surety and that confidence, but just one thing here, two things here, looking at somebody's chart or looking at your own, it goes a mile. It goes a long way. So definitely use the little, tidbits and gems that we drop because they work.
Absolutely. And I think just moving forward, it's just going to be more important, for people to really be, we don't have as much, a lot of us don't have as much leeway to kind of find ourselves in our career and stuff like that. So I think, utilizing astrology and getting with a good astrologer and everything, it help you save time, and be more efficient,
Well, I look at it like this, an investment of 275 can save you, a college career. Right. It can save you, the time and energy that you would normally invest in a venture that is not, tailored for you. So I would say 275 is a bargain, considering what's out there that you can, make a mistake on.
40,000, 60,000,
Easy,
100,000.
easy.
Indeed, indeed. But yeah, we got a pretty good response from that. One thing that some people did reach out on. We just passed through it. The eclipse, and what kind of impact are we looking at moving forward after this past lunar eclipse that we just went through?
Well, lunar eclipses are really kind of like the kind of precursor, right, to solar eclipse. They always are. And lunar eclipses generally are a lot less impactful with regards to major shifts and occurrences. One of the things that I advise, many people to do is if you do go out in a eclipse, make sure you cover right your head, especially the back of your head, which is a specific point in traditional Chinese medicine. You always cover that back, right, to make sure that those inimical energies are protected, especially during if you have to go out during a solar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are just like I said, they're less impactful. It's the moon, right? So it's going to really impact emotional kind of turmoil. It's going to pull out emotional hidden issues, right? And those things can be resolved fairly easily. But solar eclipses are a lot more inimical, a lot more impactful. And so during a lunar eclipse, it's a good time to meditate, good time to take account of the things that you're going through, give thanks, right, as well. Really take stock of how you've been feeling during the time that the eclipse happens, a little bit before and also after. Just taking a good bead of what's going on inside of your mental thoughts and mental awareness to really hone in and focus on what's important. Um, and it's phenomenal that these cycles typically happen right at the end of the year. That lives like literally gives you a time to detach, right? To put the kind of nonsense away that's been happening for the last 12 or 11 months and really get into your spiritual studies and spiritual work. That's really what eclipses are good for. This eclipse that we're having now, obviously, is in Taurus, right? Which is, Taurus is a stabilizer for the moon, right? And so being a stabilizer and eclipse there is going to be a lot more mild mannered than it would be in any other sign, right? And that's a nice thing to have with this eclipse. You know, you can use this eclipse to really uh, bond and build bridges with people because it's stabilized. I'm talking about in your immediate home, working out those issues that you have that may not have been discussed for the past 6 months or the past lunar cycle or past eclipse cycle, bringing out things that really you've been holding back and you don't want to come out in a way that is haphazard. It's a good time to really dig in and sort those things out, because if we repress them at this time, a lot of times when that Scorpio cycle happens, right, that's when the trigger will literally release all of those portents and the things that we really didn't get off our chest when we had an opportunity to, when the moon said, you know what, go ahead and let it all out.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, to that point, I mean, an opportunity probably even popped up, you know, for you to do that. You know, I know it did for me.
As my person as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
But then when you're aware of it, oh, this is what it is, right? And so then you can use it, right? And you can recognize it and say, hey, you know what? Let's deal with this and move on. Right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Really cathartic. It's really cathartic.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, gotta love the science, man. Indeed. You know. Well, I mean, but to that point, I mean that kind of brings us into our subject today.
Absolutely. We can veggie back that one real quick, right? You know, being that the moon is responsible for you know, eclipses, right? When they align, when the sun, moon, and earth align, you know, that time is, you know, twice a year that the energies open portals, right? And close portals as well. And so endings and beginnings, right, are key markers of eclipses. Well, you know, in our mind, a lot of times those things that we think that we've dealt with in the past don't end, and they perpetuate endlessly, right? In a mind that is imbalanced or challenged with having some coherent flow, right, and some coherent ability to have some control. And today's show is really going to highlight really the things we look at in a chart that talk about lunacy, right? Imbalanced thinking, right? And you know, lunacy and you know, mental issues, mental disorders are far ranging from schizophrenia to bipolar to ADHD to even phobias, right? Many people don't know that a lot of times, this is not always, but a lot of times Scorpio is the sign of phobias. And you know, I've done quite a few charts, and the ones that I've done, it's very strange that a phobia, and I don't know the name of the phobia, it is a real phobia, folks. And you know, the DSM will classify almost anything if they can get their hands on it. But there is a phobia of things like dots, right? Small little things, like all around. I can't remember the name of the phobia, but it's Mercury in Scorpio. And Mercury deals with details, small things, right? Things that are infinitesimal, right? Or, you know, things that are dotted or small or, you know, meticulous. And Scorpio is a sign of fear or fears, phobias, right? So it's interesting that many of the charts that I've done, and it's almost strange because the person I can ask, they say, well, not always, but many times, do you have a fear of like little dots or like little things that move? And they're like, yes, that just drives me crazy. And it's like, wow, it's just repetitious. So just little things like that just let you know that everybody has some type of mental thing going on if you're, dealing with those intense signs, right? And so, go ahead, go ahead.
That's funny that you bring it up, and it, something just happened this weekend with Tyson, right? He did the little exhibition boxing, and his moon's in Scorpio, but he had a revelation where he has a podcast as well, and he was stating that essentially what he said was everything that he was doing back in the day, his whole kind of fighting prowess was based off of fear. He was scared. You understand what I'm saying? He was scared. One time a bully took something from him or whatever, and he was scared that it was going to happen again. So he just projected this image and stuff like that to scare people off, but because he was really scared.
Yeah. I mean, it's a natural response for those that, the big bad monsters are usually the ones that are the most frightened of people and things. So that makes perfect sense. Most of the people that I've known have been bullies, have been either abused or, mistreated by someone that's very close to them. So it just makes perfect sense to transfer that energy to the person that's in front of you. And Mike Tyson's a very special case. He does have moon debilitated. This last fight, interesting enough, that Mars was conjunct Rahu, right? Which you can tell he held back, right? But Mike is a little off too. Right. Right. No disrespect, Mike. I don't want no problems, bro. Right. We ever come all right. But he himself has said, you know what I mean, that, he views himself in a certain light that he doesn't deem himself as being worthy. And growing up in Brownsville with a moon in Scorpio, I'm sure, facilitated an intense upbringing. I mean, he actually said a lot about his growing up in Brownsville, which really speaks to a lot to the conditions that our people were dealing with at that time in that area, and to try to come out sane, right, is a task alone, right? Being impoverished, being constantly looking over your shoulders, dealing with threats and murder. I mean, even in the 70s and early 80s, Brownsville was known for murder, man. I mean, that's no joke. But, that moon being debilitated definitely creates an intense, quick, right, 0 to 60 response, right? And talking about that and leading from that, the moon is always the most important thing to look at a chart in any shape, form, or fashion. But when it comes to mental stability, it's the number one place to look for, or look at rather. And, the moon, because it's such a sensitive planet, anything that's around that moon is going to affect that individual drastically, right? Whether it be Jupiter, whether it be Saturn, whether it be any planet, Venus, right? The moon is a sensitive planet. And here's the strange thing about the moon. The moon doesn't like to be alone in a chart, right? That's actually a yoga called a Kimadrum yoga, where the moon is alone, right? And so it's strange, right? And of course, that yoga can be canceled by a Gajrakasara yoga or different placements, right? Kendra's planets and Kendra's from that particular position also cancel. So there's different things that can cancel that placement of being alone. But the moon does not like to be alone in the chart. And so just knowing that alone, showing that the moon just being alone can create sensitivity issues, right? Can create issues where the person feels alone. They don't feel like they have any type of support, right? But at the same time, you have to look at the other way around too, that the moon also allows the person to stand alone, right? And to be alone and to enjoy those moments of being in solitude and self-reflection, right? With a Kimadrum yoga. So not everything's, good or bad. It usually comes in twos. And so understanding that, the moon being such a sensitive planet, anything that's it doesn't matter where it is. Anywhere the moon is, you're going to literally see it in the person's disposition automatically. right? And so that's the first part that you look for is the condition of that moon in all its variances, right? One thing we always notice is that if the moon is placed in a moksha house, there seems to be mental disturbances. It can be in other houses too, but moksha houses specifically seem to really give the moon problems. And you would think that being a moksha, Cancer, right, is a moksha sign, right? You would think that the moon being in Cancer would be just like this stabilizing factor. But many times, the moon just being in Cancer can create mental, right, issues because it's so sensitive and so at home, right? Anything that goes on around it or doesn't go on around it, literally that placement also is one that's very sensitive. Moon and Cancer individuals feel everything, right?
See that? That's I've
Notice
observed
that
that with a
happen.
lot of people, especially men.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was literally about to say, with men, it's even more detrimental, right? Now, here's the thing. Detrimental, when I say, you have to understand the whole context of the chart, right? For example, moon in the 10th house many times, right, can leave someone very empowered with regards to their memory, mental disposition, and so forth. It also depends on the house it's placed in as well. So let me make that statement. But many times, if the moon is not in that 10th house position, where it's, and again, even in the 10th house, if it's damaged or challenged by malefics, right, or functional malefics even, then it can have some repercussions, even in the 10th. But you always look to see, right, where that moon is placed. And again, many times, the moon in Cancer, the person can grow up having an extreme shield, right, around their real feelings. And a lot of times they come out so haphazardly because the moon is so, and it depends on which nakshatra, of course, too, right? Because if it's in Pusha, right, Pusha is a lot less intense than Ashlesha, right? So, again, all those things factor out. But those are things that I've noticed just off the cuff. If I see the moon in Cancer, it's a male. I notice that something may be a little, sensitive, right? Or at least the emotions are, they wear their heart on their sleeve a lot more, right? They tend to reverberate whatever feelings you give to them back immediately, right? There's no barrier, right, with emotion. So if I feel sad, my person's in the state of feeling despair, that person's going to feel it very quickly, male or female. But men typically are not masters of their emotions because we don't grow up being taught how to meditate and understand the actual feminine side of ourselves, right? So, that's one thing that really surprised me is moon in Cancer. And it probably surprised you too, is I thought moon in Cancer would really be a stabilizing factor. And it's not even considered. The thing is that, you have different classifications, different placements where the planets are. So exaltation is obviously one where the moon is stabilized. That's in Taurus. But the Mula Trikona for the moon is, guess where? In Taurus. So only own sign is in Cancer. That means that the moon doesn't do as well as you would think in its own sign, right? Very. So again, just denoting, right, the jump off, the thing that sets the stage, right, is that person's mental sensitivities or mental strengths, right, on the other side. And so, looking at other factors, one thing that I've noticed is that Saturn and Mars are usually challenged in the chart dramatically. Saturn and Mars always play a role because Saturn, number one, is the planet that makes us face reality. right? It helps us to sense, what the real issue is, and not something that might be far blown beyond what we might think it to be. People that have a good sense of common sense have a strong Saturn, right? And a strong moon. Well, common sense obviously is, let's say not that common, right? But nonetheless, right, we all have varying degrees of common sense. So when we understand that from the moon's perspective and we involve Saturn, it can go both ways. Common sense, but also having the sense of going too far and being going to the point of where we lose sense of reality through that depression, through that frustration, through the fear that Saturn produces. So it's a fine line, right? Because a lot of folks that I know with Moon Saturn conjunctions, if the conjunction is strong, that person is very practical, right? Very much in touch with reality. But when Saturn's damaged, the sense of reality is skewed, right? And I know Rahu and Ketu always play a role in this, and that is true. But if Saturn is somewhat damaged or challenged, the person's sense of being able to bring themselves down to a realistic purview is very challenged. They can't get back to what we call the norm, right? And it took me a while to figure that out, why Saturn would be such an impactful planet in individuals that have mental disturbances, mental issues. But that's a big player. Mars also is a player. Now, Mars is a player in that if it impacts the moon in some way, or impacts Saturn too, right? Or the sun, depending on how we look at it. And there's so many different combinations that produce similar results. But if Mars and Saturn are in any way, shape, form, or fashion in impacting each other negatively, that is also a key marker in mental instability, because Mars agitates, right? He insinuates, he pushes, he drives, he makes it to where you can't settle, right? And that in unsettling ability plus the lack of sense of reality, quick to make for individuals that can do things that would not be the norm, right? Again, looking back to the moon stability. Now, the other planet that you would obviously consider is Mercury, right? And in that order, right? If Saturn's strong, it's really, I'm talking about healthy, strong in the Kendras, well placed in the sign, well placed in the Navamsha, well placed in the D8, right? Then that person can literally deal with any type of challenges to reality, meaning that they come back really quickly. They don't lose their minds. But when that Saturn is not healthy, right, in the Navamsha or in the D8, right, you're going to notice that those people have extreme problems, right, dealing with staying in touch, right? But Mercury, right? Mercury is a planet that allows the mental processor, right, to function properly. That's all Mercury is, right? He's just basically a mouthpiece for the brain, right? And so that mouthpiece, if it's skewed or damaged, right, that's when you have individuals that say they hear voices. Because remember, hearing is not just external, it's what? Internal as well. And so one of the things that you'll notice is that if Mercury is damaged by one of the nodes or one of Saturn, right, squared, if Saturn is squared Mercury, you'll find depression a lot of times will ensue. And, depression can come from many different places. It can come from the moon and Saturn, but it also can come from Mars and Saturn. And the difference is that Mercury is going to be the record player.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And so it continuously, in meditation, one of the things that we do is we bind, right, Sebek, we bind Mercury. We give him something to do, right? The monkey mind, as they say, right? Right. So when you don't have meditation, you don't know how to give him something to do. He gives you what? Something to do. Right. right? And you think the voices are real, right? And they may be somebody talking to you if there's other psychic influences that are there. But again, right, you have to take those things with a grain of salt. Nonetheless, right, Mercury is a big player. If Mercury and Moon are together, this many times can create mental instabilities depending on how they're placed, right? Remember, the moon with anything is going to take on the impact of whatever that planet is. And if it's the planet of the mouthpiece, right, the planet that literally gives you the jabber jagging in your head, and the moon is there, you're going to feel whatever's said, right? Right? You're going to sense the words that are inside of your head are real, right? Reality, right, is hard to determine when it's your own thoughts, right? And so that's another factor, right? Of course, the nodes always play an indication, right? These are just anytime you got the node is a wild card, right? In any conjunct any planet, just get prepared to play Uno. Which color's coming, right? And how many's coming with it. Because that's what they bring, right? So, one of the charts that we definitely want to delve into, one of my favorites, right, is a classic, right? Classic, classic, classic case study, right? And folks, I know this seems a little redundant, right? But these things are not really that hard to see once you are at least just generally aware of what you're looking at, right? I mean, for the most part, for a long time with astrology, I just took one little thing and made it big, right? One little thing and made it big, right? And then I just started mushing and marrying, right? And combining and subtracting based on those little one stop shops, right? But those one stop shops always hold a truth. And so the truth that we always know is that the moon, right, is classic in every case. I swear to you, every case you're going to find, the moon is, let me say this. I would challenge someone to find, and if you can, please bring it to the show. We would have a great time with it. If you can find a moon in Taurus, someone that is mentally unstable with a moon in Taurus, I'd like to see it. Right? Not with conjunct Rahu or Ketu, right? Those always throw wild cards in there. I'm talking about solid moon between 0 to 7 degrees of Taurus. If you could find someone that is mentally unstable with that, please shoot it to us. We'd like to see it because it's hard to find, right? That's just how well you can read the chart. And the opposite be held true too. That, and not always, right? Moon in Scorpio many times doesn't mean the person is uh, off their rocker, right? Right, certified, right? But you were gonna find repetitious patterns where moon is in Scorpio. The person has a intense level of dealing with people, right? It's hard. Try to find one where you don't find an intense level of dealing or some mental transformations that happen, quickly. Moon in Scorpio means that the person literally they transform in an instant. Their mental disposition can change, right, within 2.3 seconds. And so it's just, those are rules. That's why they make them the rules, right? Because there has been thousands upon, I'm sure, millions of charts that have been looked upon to say, you know what, this is obviously something that happens when these placements happen. So that's why we say you can take it to the bank. The degrees is what we're looking at with regards to different placements, how extreme and how mild, right? But one of the charts I really love looking at is Ted Bundy. He's just a classic case. He is, I mean, you can't get any better as far as a case study with someone that literally is considered not fully aware of their actions. And one thing is that we can see when we get it here. There we go. One thing we can see is that there's a lot of things going on in that fourth house, right? And folks, the fourth house is another house that you can look to see if there's going to be mental disturbances. The fourth house is just as similar as akin to, uh, it's similar to the moon. It's connected to the moon. And here's the thing, right? Yeah, he's got about 5 planets here, folks. That's serious business, right? With a strong opposition from Uranus almost by degree to his moon, well, within a few degrees, right? Remember, I said Uranus has some strange things when there's a hairline with 3, 2, 1 degree kind of aspect or conjunction. It's there, right? Now, he's Leo ascendant, right? He's Magha. And Magha ascendants, obviously, as we know from our former or to be former president, that Maghas can be very demanding and very much about getting what they want, right? And Jeffrey Dahmer is known for, a slew of insidious crimes. But of course, one of the things that he was known for was luring him into his what? His home. Yeah, right. The bedroom, of course, right, would be the back end of that piece, but he always would get them to his home, right? If I remember correctly, because I didn't read all of the cases, right? But I did look at some of them, and a lot of them they would be in the home, and that's when they will black out, and that's it, right? So he's got 5 planets in the fourth house, which represents the what?
Now you were talking,
The
you're
home.
talking about Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh no, I'm sorry. You know what? I had Jeffrey Dahmer on there too. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. No, Ted Bundy, you're all right. It is the bedroom. I do apologize, my friend. I'm thinking Jeffrey because I had him on the list as well. No, Jeffrey Dahmer is the one that actually got him into the home. We actually can try to see if we can find out a little bit of information about him. But no, you're right. Ted Bundy is actually it would be the bedroom. And if you look, 4, 5 planets in Scorpio, that's intense. That's intense. That is overwhelmingly from moment to moment, this guy is internally fighting with demons, right? Moment to moment, moment to moment. He didn't get a real sense of rest or peace at all. The fourth house is the house of Santosha, they say, right? Which is contentment. But we say it's the house of just literally be able to be at peace, right? Right. Just being able to sit and be with yourself, right? Couldn't do it, right? When he was with himself, there's about 4 other people in there, right? That's all vying for, right, that sense of what will satiate him, right? And the Mercury being there is the mouthpiece, obviously, right? That Mercury piece is the mental disposition to hear those things, to say, yeah, this is okay to do that. I can do this, right? I can harm this person with no trepidation, or not even to think about it, right? Right. The sun being there, right? And there's a combustion, right? Right.
Yeah.
With Mercury. So I mean, there's just a lot going on in the fourth house. K2, right? Mars, Moon, right? And then his ascendant Lord. Remember, I told you the ascendant Lord, right? It's right there, right? It's right there. It plays the role, right? Yeah, that's serious business. So, and here's the thing about it. Throughout his whole life, right, with the exception of Venus, Rahu, and Saturn, all of the other planets are experienced through the dasha systems, through the fourth house, through this combination. I mean, uh, granted, he's born in 46, so he's born into a Mercury dasha, right? Automatically, he's born into a dasha where the mental disposition is challenged, right? From the gate, right? Mercury's retrograde. It's in Vishaka. Vishaka is known for being an intense portion of Scorpio, right? The next dasha he's in is K2. And K2, folks, for a young person to go through is very intense, right? It's intense for an adult to go through a K2 period. But for a child, it's very unstabilizing. It's very destabilizing. It doesn't matter how well K2 is placed. That is a very challenging 7-year period for anyone to deal with on this planet. It is designed to do something to create a means for you to release karmic baggage, right? But remember, you can't release karmic baggage at the age of what, 8, 9,
Yeah.
9?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Well, let's say 46 to 56, right, is 10. Minus, so he's 7. Yeah, 7 years old. Yeah. 7 years old, right? Starting off at a K2 dasha, which ends, right, 7 years later when he's 14 years old. Venus dasha lasts, right, for a period of 20 years, right, until the 80s. And I'm pretty sure the 80s is when he got started killing. Right? Sun dasha, right? And the sun is, again, the ascendant lord. So it's he himself playing this thing out. Right? And what most people don't see is a lot of the things that are happening with this particular placement is the 12th from that particular stellium. The 12th from it is Venus. So this is really where a lot of the issues where his pent up frustrations came in through, right? Was women.
Yeah, I think he first started being accused of stuff was back in the 70s.
Was it the 70s? Mm-hmm. Probably late 70s. Yeah, because that sun dasha is getting ready to turn on, right? And it's revving up. So I'm sure, during that Venus dasha bhukti, when it's switching over, yeah, he definitely was probably doing some things. So, but the thing is that the notoriety, right? The limelight, if you will, that's associated with the things that he did. I mean, look, he's in a sun period until 1986, right? Then he goes into a moon period. So, I mean, I'm just showing you that only with the exception of Venus, and that's probably why we didn't hear about those things until the later portion of the Venus dasha is when those things begin to happen. But the end of Venus, sun, moon, I mean, there's no time for him to get peace, right? There's no dasha, no extended period that he could just say, you know what, I could put the internal craziness down and step away or go somewhere else or do something else or be introduced to someone that might even help, right? Those periods are not there. So by the time he gets into a Mars dasha, 96, I mean, Mars is also a part of this whole shebang, so he never gets out of it, right? Rahu hits in 2003 until 2021, right? So, I mean, granted, right, there's no escape.
Yeah, I can't find anything.
There's no escape.
Yeah, nothing.
Because
even Jupiter,
exactly.
In the classics, Jupiter doesn't, they don't really do that. I see people with Jupiter in the 3rd house. I mean, it's not like but it's a funny thing,
Well, it's a Trisha Daya house. It's a cruel house, right? And it's a house that deals with efforts, right? And so, but it also deals with the lower mind. And so that base mind, intellect mind, right? Literally, I mean, you got Jupiter and Venus there. That you would think that it would produce, right, some very healthy, viable things. But because of the positioning of those planets, especially Venus being in Vishaka, they're both in Vishaka, in fact. Vishaka is a very intense nakshatra. It just is, right? It's ruled by Indra Agni, which is It's an amalgamation of two particular principles: Indra, the king of the gods, and Agni, right, which is the principle of fire, fire deified. And so that constant, insatiable. What happens with Vishaka is they're insatiable. They're empty, right? They don't. It's hard for them to fill themselves with things, right? So if Jupiter's there, right, it's going to have a great impact in regards to that. I've seen Jupiter in Libra produce some crazy results as well, right, with regards to mental or spiritual stability, right? Not always, but many times Jupiter in Libra can just, the person can choose to live spirituality from a very bohemian perspective, right?
I can see that.
Right. And Venus there, of course, adds into that.
Sometimes when I see a lot of people, I don't know if you noticed it, but Vishaka, certain places, I've seen them have a lot of tattoos sometimes.
It does.
And pierce, a lot of
that is strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I've seen that. Definitely. So, Jeffrey Dahmer's classic, right? I really don't even. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is classic. You don't have to reach very far to really see the implications from birth, right? You look at the D10. The D9. Excuse me. Moon's in Aquarius, right? Also something to consider. Saturn is in the 8th, in the D9. Mercury is in the 4th. Mars is in Mercury. It's not all. The D9 is not situated all that great either, right? In regards to what would stabilize, right, a lot of those placements. Mercury being in the sign of Cancer in the D9 doesn't help at all. Mars being in opposition, Moon being in a Saturn ruled sign, probably in shot to be shock somewhere in that particular in the degrees in the D9. So again, it just shows that these things are reinforced further down you go in. It really is. And having an Aries, right, first house in the D9 also shows, right, that fearlessness or that drive, right, to push, to get things done, right? That's what Aries will do. They will drive. They will get it done. They will have a fearless way of looking at things. And so it adds into that Magha ascendant. I mean, look, if you look at it, it's 2 degrees, right? So that means for the most part, all the way up into the D12, it's probably about the D12, it's going to be Aries ascendant, right? So that's still, that shows that in the subconscious or in the spirit, right, that person is aligned to do things in a very haphazard and sometimes thoughtless way.
No doesn't mean no with him.
No. Aries don't know what no means, right? I'm gonna have it, right? I likes you and I want you, right? You could do this the easy way, or you could do it the hard way. The choice is yours. he, oh yeah, that's a real fella, man. Very special individual. Right, but Jeffrey gonna get it, man. I mean, not Jeffrey, but Ted's gonna get it. Ted's gonna take it. He's gonna get it. And you can see that 3rd house, right? The third Venus in the 3rd house, right? That's the drive for that Venus. That's the drive for that interaction, right? Even though it's not supported or in part of how he feels or how he processes things. That's why it's so alien to have that pleasure, right? Or to get for it to take him to that level, right? So quite interesting on that one. Another one that is pretty interesting is Berkowitz, the son of Sam. And he's just another great classic case study, to really look at and see. And we're not looking at the Shambhala or any of these things. I mean, granted, watch this, right? Check it out. This is how it works. You know, the moon has Digbala, right, in the fourth house. He gets directional strength in the fourth. So that moon getting that much strength in the fourth house, you think it would help, right? But it's so much mental energy, right? It's too much to handle in the fourth, right? Sometimes that which is good, right, can become a negative. Not all of those moons being in the fourth with Digbala, right, with directional strength is great. And this is a classic case of that. Now, Rahu is there with the moon in the fourth house again. Now, here's moon again, right? Here's moon again. We don't have to reach too far, right? The moon being conjunct Rahu within about 2 degrees states a lot, right? That person's mind is constantly, right? Constantly dealing with inner turmoil, right? The thoughts come and go so quickly, right? It's a matter of even perceiving if the thoughts are real. Reality is not, right, in his repertoire of thoughts, right? Reality is gone. And, one of the crazy things that he said was that he heard voices he said he heard these dogs barking, right? And while the dogs were barking, right, that's when he heard the demons' voices, right? Well, remember I said Mercury is always going to be involved in some way. Where is good old Mercury placed? Bingo. In a moksha house, right? Where is the moon's lord?
12.
In a
I mean,
moksha
no,
house.
in the eighth. Moon's on eighth. Yeah. Well, no,
The moon's
12.
lord is in 12. Yeah. That's a moksha house.
Yeah.
He's got all his planets in what? Moksha houses.
Yeah.
Remember I said earlier, moksha houses are key houses to denote mental instability, right? People say, what about the sixth house? What about the sixth house? The sixth house is a house that deals with acute things. So the moon in the sixth house can sometimes deal with mental illnesses, definitely, but it's acute, right? So it can be managed to a higher degree, right? Because remember, the sixth house is the house of dealing with daily things, right? Tasks, right? Which can become burdensome for the moon in the sixth, which then can lead to levels of depression or frustration. That is absolutely true, or other type of issues. But it's not as bad as being in the fourth, eighth, or 12th, especially when you have the nodes conjuncting it, right? That's just a big chunk, right, to bite off. So showing, right, that this individual, right, is obviously loaded in areas of his life that require for him to constantly be on the threshold of change, right? And that's just not comfortable for most of us. And the way many people deal with it is, some people use drugs. Some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to sex, porn addictions, various things, right? To try to numb or to assuage, right, that inner frustration. But clearly you can't get away, right, when these types of things happen, because look at the periods that he runs. Now, he's known, this is called the Son of Sam, right? There's a famous Spike Lee movie about it, right? I'm sure you probably know about it being a filmmaker, right? That movie called The Son of Sam.
Have I seen Son of Sam? I don't know if I've seen Son of Sam. If I did, it was a long time ago.
Right, it was. Because it's not one of the ones that you really remember Spike Lee for, but it's one of the ones that he definitely addressed in regards, because it's a big, I think it was like 6 people were murdered, right? And this all happened, of course, in New York. But again, just another classic individual that shows. I mean, and a lot of his killings happened in the 70s. Well, there's that Rahu period again, right? We got to get the t-shirts because, right, those are key. It's no joke, right? It's right there, 70 to 88. I can guarantee you the majority of his stuff is going to be in that period, right? He starts off, though, folks, in a moon dasha.
Mm-hmm.
The mother had some disturbances. And they say the apple never falls far, right? So, considering, and that's why the moon is so important to upbringing, because it literally represents that nourishment, that kind of bonding that that you had with the person that was closest to God, which is your mother. And so when you know that, right, and again, this isn't a Capricorn ruled sign, right? So Saturn is playing his role. Despite his role, his placement being in the 12th, he's still playing a very prominent role because of the ruler. It rules Saturn. Now, moon is in Shravana. Shravana is ruled by the moon, right? Rahu's in Shravana as well. So again, it's in a moon-based nakshatra, but Rahu being there, right? It destroys any type of functionality that could happen with regards to that placement, right? Now, the thing is that because the fourth lord's in the 12th house, that's a destabilizer. But then, and here's where you have to really be careful, because they say he would have a Vipreet Raja Yog, right? The 12th lord is in the 8th. Is that always the case, though? No, right? Did he run a Asha period that would have involved those planets? Well, let's see. So Rahu is connected to Saturn, right? Saturn is connected to Mercury, and Mercury is connected to Venus, right? And of course the other planets that Mercury conjoins. But look, he didn't really all his dashas were very much intense dashas. He has the moon starting off, then Mars from 63 to 70, and Mars is in the 8th house, right? So that's not a time when normalcy can really proceed, right? And then looking at it from right directly on, right? I mean, he moves right into that Rahu Dasha right after. So again, right, and Mars is in Mrigashira, right, which is his own nakshatra, but it also is connected to Venus, right? And Venus is in the 7th house, aspecting the ascendant. So 8th Lord aspecting the ascendant also has a great deal to impact in regards to those placements. So, right, all those things intertwine. But the bottom line is that these placements are classic with regards to mental instability, right? They're just classic. That's why I chose these individuals, because these individuals are, without a doubt, right? You can see it. Another one that is fun, right? When I say fun, it's not fun to talk about, but fun to look into, right? Because this is an individual that ruined the lives of many Black people. When I was a young boy, Jim Jones was the talk of the town. That's what I heard a lot of. And yeah,
Saying after him, don't drink the Kool-Aid.
it's a U.S. colloquialism. You know what, right? I mean, that's pretty potent that your name lives on through something that talks about don't taste it, don't swallow, right? Right? That's crazy, right? And look at the chart right off, folks, right? I mean, where's the moon? Good night. Already in a moksha house. Moksha house. Right there. It's conjunct Rahu. I mean, y'all should know now. When y'all see this Rahu with the moon thing, right? Just start rubbing your hands, right? Because you have to start reading some stuff, right? Because it's fairly evident. right? It's clear cut, right? Um, you know, and again, folks, I tell you, look to find the ascendant Lord. It is in the seventh house, right? Then you would say, well, the seventh house, it's not a house, it's not a moksha house, it's not a house that deals with anything, right? But it's looking back at the ascendant, and the Lord of Jupiter is in the fifth, right? Being in the fifth house deals with your intelligence, right? So let's just look at it. He actually was a very charismatic individual, was he not? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a preacher. Fifth house is preaching, right? Ninth house is preaching, right? So you can see, right, that Jupiter has a very strong affinity, right, with the fifth house
Mm-hmm.
because of Mercury's connection of the sambandha between Mercury and the Sun. Sambandha, folks, means connection, right? Not like yoga, but in the sense of interweaving, right? Sambandha is like a bond. Sambandha, it's bonded, right? When you say bandha, right? When we're practicing our pranayam, right? That means we're locking, right? And bandha means to lock or to link or to hold, right? Renu bandha, right, is when you have a connection with someone karmically speaking, right? You have what we say, a debt or a connection, if you will, or a lesson, whatever you want to label, however you want to label it. But, right, the ascendant Lord is tied to the fifth house. You see that, right? Now, the fifth house is the house of mental, right? Intelligence, right? Right. Well, where's the fifth Lord? It's in the eighth house. Told you. Right. Debilitated. Right. Right. So again, showing that there is something to connect the individual's ability to process reality, because the fifth house is the quintessential house of a chart, right? It's one of the houses we look for just very quickly to see if there's anything going on in there. What's the karma like? What's the person's gifts? Where they come? What do they come with? Well, he comes with a gift, right? He comes with a gift to literally move people, right? To lead people, right? Which is the sun, and through the mouthpiece, which is Mercury. But again, right, showing that the fifth Lord is in the eighth, and the eighth Lord is where? Back into a moksha, right? You see these moksha houses, they're big, right? When it comes to mental instability, they're big, right? Back to the combination, Venus, right, it's not conjunct, right, by degree, right, but it is in the house, and it actually is exalted, isn't it? Right, right, almost by degree, really by degree, right? It's exalted by degree, but then the Lord of that planet, right, goes to the seventh, and there's not a Parvatana, but that particular Lord going to the seventh in Gemini doesn't do so well, right? It doesn't really stabilize, right, that particular exaltation. So not only that, right, if you look directly, let's see, what's the degree of Pluto? 26, and it's what, 3 degrees arc, about 3 degrees.
Oh yeah. It is. Yeah. 3 degrees.
So again, I showed you that whenever those arcs are there, it's really close within degrees, right? It's a big thing, right? His Venus is conjunct Uranus within 3 degrees, right? Venus for a Sag ascendant is what we call a functional malefic. It is not, right, a very viable planet, even if it's exalted in the fourth. So again, these are all things that you add in, right? You add them in. But look at Saturn. Saturn's always going to play a role, folks. I told you, right? He's impacting, right, the moon. He's aspecting it from 3 houses. Well, he has a third house aspect to the moon, right?
Yep.
Right.
And Saturn is, in the second house is,
shows, upbringing could have been strict, depressive, deprived, right? Even though it's in his own sign, it is retrograde. And it is in opposition to Mars, which again, those Mars-Saturn oppositions, conjunctions, right, always are going to create some tension. Right? So this is just another great way to show what has transpired in this individual's life. Now, here's the thing. Check it out. Check it out. When did he grab his flock? In the 70s, 60s, and 70s, right? Look what Dasha period he's in. He's in that exalted Venus Dasha, right? Easily pulling individuals in. But remember, Venus is a functional malefic for Sag, meaning it does not give the full emphasis of the positivity that Venus can bring for Sag. 6th house is enemies, and the 11th house is groups and networks. So you can clearly see, right, that during this time, there was a mixture of how he felt about those people.
Yeah.
Some of them he probably had some very close connections to. And then within those close connections, because of his mental, right, issues, they become enemies. Right. So I'm sure his flock, and many of them, I mean, they were recorded. Many of them tried to escape and they were murdered. Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So your 11th house, folks, is your is groups and organizations. It's how you deal with people that you deal with that are a part of bodies of people, right? And so the 11th house, right, is a house that you can look for to see how people deal with social networking, how they literally deal in society, right? 11th house is a very revealing house in that regard. So it's connected to the 6th house, which is enemies. So again, it just shows that there's a very see, we always think that Venus is all great and grandiose. It's not, right? It has some dark sides, like all planets do. But Venus being in the 4th house literally allowed him to produce, right, the heartfelt content that those people were following. Right? It was a big act. Venus is an actress or an actor, right? But coming from a very deep, heartfelt place. But again, Saturn impacting all those planets in the 4th house, it was something dark behind it, something very malicious, right? Very controlling and very sad, right, to say the least. So, right, Saturn, again, showing the role, Saturn, Mars, right, is debilitated. Like you said earlier, that's a big flag as well. Many times when Mars is debilitated, the person's just going to have enemies. They're going to be able to create problems with other people without thinking about it, right? And then looking in the the D9, excuse me, you see Saturn conjunct Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, right? That's still big, right? So, I mean, you can't get any better. Every single one that we've looked at has had these particular symptomatic and systematic placements, right?
Yeah.
Without a doubt. We did talk about Kanye a little bit, didn't we?
His time is
right.
It's not confirmed. His time.
Okay.
The time that I have, it looks like it, but we probably have to play with it a little bit more.
Probably, yeah, just to tweak it to get it right. But you're right. I did notice some things. And it's the level of insanity and in mental instability that we're talking is quite far and extreme for most of these individuals, right? For all of these individuals, they're to the left of it, right? There are much milder, much less graphic cases, right, that are available to review and to bring up for compare and contrast. But we had a show on addictions, right? And many times, right, there's some things that overlap, right, from the addiction side to mental instability. And a lot of times you'll see, right, that the moon, because it's just like that record player, right, that just can't, it's going with the grooves, and then Saturn is pushing down and saying, no, you can't lift. You can't go to the next thread. You have to stay on this particular note. You have to stay on this particular thread. And so, that being the case, there are cases that are just not as extreme. You have individuals with OCD, right? Saturn will play a very prominent role in individuals with OCD because Saturn is the planet that literally calls you back to the past, right? Causes you to remember when you had and then now you don't have, right? And so, individuals that have just the basic need to repeat things repetitiously, right? You're going to find Saturn and Rahu or even Ketu there many times, because Ketu would detach someone from reality, right? So that they literally don't have the thought process to stop, whereas Rahu takes you and sucks you deeper into some type of form of illusion or false reality.
Yeah.
Right. So they both can play a role, but more Ketu for OCDs, because it's almost like you're trying to stop something, right? Or trying to take something out of something and put it into something else. That's almost what OCD is. You're trying to formulate a reality based on doing something repetitiously to bridge something, right? And K2 is the one that knocks the bridge out, right? So, again, folks, research, use what we bring you to, look into your own case studies. If you have people that you would like for us to do research on, like maybe along these lines or other lines, let us know. One of the things that I did have a problem finding, and I'm not saying there's nothing out there that would match it, because I'm sure there is, right? We just maybe don't know about it or her, but it's hard to find individuals of African descent, right, with
serial killers and stuff like that.
Serial killers, just people that take it to the next level. I didn't find any. I know there are some out there. It just maybe it's not. I haven't researched it, and even then, maybe hard to find a good birth time for that individual. But it's just I don't. Did you notice that? I couldn't find any black serial killers. I just didn't see any.
No, I mean there's crazy people, but to take it as far.
We all got those, right? In the fam. But it's interesting, right? So if you all know of any black serial killers, and I know they were trying to like connect the guy that was doing the sniping. I think they were trying to put him in that category at one point. You remember the fella that was with him and his son?
Yeah. I can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I think they were trying, and it'd be interesting if we could get his chart too. But and that just seemed like a military co-op. Someone didn't jail right all the way with that whole scenario, but you never can tell these days. But I think he might have been, I don't know if he was labeled as a serial killer, but I know they literally were thinking or mentioning that he was on that rampage and killed so many people. So, but I think the classic serial killer is like, the one that, we're thinking like the Zodiac killer or, something like that, then yeah. But
I got one example that, we don't gotta go super hard on it, but there is one guy from the 80s, and it was connected to drugs. A gentleman by the name of Wayne Perry, out of DC, who was connected to, I don't know, you ever seen Paid in Full?
Yeah, I saw the movie. Yeah.
All right, so the story with Alpo and Richard Porter out of New, you know what I mean. So Wayne Perry was a person down in D.C. that was essentially like the murder man. You know, for Alpo, he was like his shooter, and he killed a lot of people out there. That's what he was known for. Now, I don't have a good time on it, but here's his chart from the moon.
Well, there's Moon and Ardra already.
Yeah. You know,
Already.
debilitated Mars, Saturn.
Look at the D9. I mean, we don't even know the moon's a strong. If it's a strong, what time you got on that?
It's not a good time. I'm just looking at it.
But here's the thing though. Here's how you can surmise something real quick. Boom. So if we know it's 22:44 midnight, right? His moon would still be in Ardra. So if we go back, right? So from midnight, and the moon moves 13 degrees 20 minutes per day, right? So half of that day is 6 degrees, right? Which is noon, right? So noon is at 6 degrees. Then moon would that be at 6 degrees. So you could almost say, right, even going back, right, 6 degrees is what? Purnavasu? I'm not, Mrigashira, excuse me, right? But even if it's in Mrigashira, look at Mars.
Debilitated.
Right. I mean, it's right there. Right. I'm saying the sublord is debilitated. Right. It's dead. It's dead on. It's dead giveaway. So I'm saying the moon is a good chance of being in Ardra. Right. But even if it's in Mrigashira, it doesn't. It's gonna still. It still yields that instability. So and it's not gonna go anywhere beyond that. So you know what I'm saying. So we got a good B between Mrigashira and Ardra. And I would probably go with Ardra just for the simple fact that a person can do some things like that. Because Mrigashira isn't built that way typically. It can be, if Rahu's playing a big role, but there's no Rahu here that plays that role, except that Rahu conjuncts Mars, and Mars is in Ashlesha. Right, that's a big one. But the moon being in Gemini also can create mental instabilities. Not always. We got a lot of people moon in Gemini, so don't go off and say, "Man, Ross said I went right." No, you have to have a whole lot of other factors that play in, right? But if you look at this thing here, right, he's got Mercury, right, with Venus and Sun. They're all in Vishaka, man. Vishaka is an intense nakshatra. It's the nakshatra that bridges over to Scorpio. Right? There's only 3 degrees in Scorpio. All the rest of it is in Libra. But the end of that Libra energy is very intense. Right? Vishaka is ruled by the totem, right? The totem animal for Vishaka is a tiger, a male tiger, which is a hunter. Right? A predator, a lonely, solitary creature. Right? You got Mercury, Venus, and Sun, which is debilitated in that positioning. Now, yes, the debilitation is canceled. Yes, right? But the moon's positioning, and I'm pretty sure it's in Ardra, is not. That's not going to change. You have, again, remember what I told you? There's a dead giveaway right there. Saturn and Mars in opposition. Right? And it's in the and that's in the Rahu K2 axis. Yeah, this guy is definitely one that can take you out. Again, Mars in Cancer is no joke, and it's in Ashlesha. So this is perfect example. Perfect example. If we had a good time, I would probably bet that those moksha houses might be even a little bit more dealt with. You may have Mars in the 4th or Mars in the 8th.
Yeah.
Right. But again, even without the time from just the moon from the Chandra Lagna, it's still very clear. Right. Still very clear. So yeah, perfect. Good example. Excellent example. I mean, that's a stellium, man, in the fifth house. So this guy's a pretty smart fella, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a dummy. Yeah, he hit those murders very well until they found him. I mean, he's invisible almost. There you go. Because without that, I don't see. I mean, man, Saturn K2 in the eighth in Capricorn. Yeah, he was no joke. Definitely excellent case, man, excellent. So yeah, I think we kind of rung this one pretty well, right? Considering that we're going to have a very interesting solar eclipse where these planets are going to be in Scorpio. And so, I just bold people folks, if you do have moon in the Scorpio sign of Scorpio, or even if your ascendant's in Scorpio, right? Now, this is a very tumultuous time. This is a very transformational time where you really need to seek solace and really need to seek peace, right? I have some very close people to me that have um, some placements with the moon in Scorpio. And I know this is a time when they're very, very antsy, very, very emotional, right? So I bid you take advantage of the science of meditation, right? Talk to somebody, right? Let someone know how you're feeling. If you have any thoughts that might, frustrate you or bring you to your knees, open your mouth, tell somebody, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your mate, tell, a child that's old enough to handle certain things, just, don't suppress, right? Scorpios suppress their emotions to the point where they literally turn to the opposite, where that's the old adage, love is a thin line, right? To hate, right? So I just unction you folks out there, for this next 2 weeks, take it slow, right? Take it slow, take it light, right? Really get into your spiritual studies, get into your spiritual teachings, turn the TV off, right? Turn it off, right? Really focus on what makes you feel complete and whole, right? On the positive sense, that is, because some things that we do that are negative make us think that we're feeling complete and whole. So I just put that out there for this eclipse season. Really try to reattach yourself to higher principles and higher teachings, and calm your mind and your emotions as much as possible.
Indeed. Well, as usual, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology. And our people over there on Patreon as well. Big shout out to the patrons. Like I said, we got some stuff coming for y'all. We're gonna be like we always do before we, release a change or something like that. Our patrons are always the guinea pigs. So definitely look forward for that. Let's see. Rod, you got anything you want to say before we check all the way out?
Oh no, brother, I've said my piece.
Yeah, man. We went a little over, but we've been doing pretty good. This season. So forgive us.
Indeed.
All right. Well, as always, thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week, same time, same place, with another great episode. Everybody be safe out there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to this channel, like the video, share this video, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow Brother Ra, so we can get the algorithms moving in our favor and stuff like that. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.